The courtroom buzzed with a low hum of whispered conversations, the kind of murmurs that seemed to seep into the very wood panels and chandeliers. It was a busy morning at the Rhode Island courthouse, but today, the atmosphere carried a heavier weight than usual. At the center of the room stood a man named Marcus, his shoulders slightly hunched as if the judgment of the entire world rested on them. His past was no secret. He had spent several years behind bars for a nonviolent crime, a mistake that had marked him in the eyes of society. Now, he faced a relatively minor traffic violation, but the weight of public opinion and his own fear made it feel like a trial of his entire character. The bailiff called the case, and heads turned toward Marcus as he walked slowly to the front. Some people in the gallery leaned back, crossing their arms, their faces a mixture of curiosity and judgment. Others whispered, shaking their heads in disbelief. A few scribbled notes furiously, perhaps reporters waiting for the next viral headline. The sunlight streamed in through the high windows, casting long shadows across the floor, and in those shadows, Marcus felt the weight of every mistake he had ever made. He tried to steady his hands, clasping them tightly together, his knuckles white. Judge Frank Caprio, known for his calm demeanor and human approach to justice, looked down over his glasses. He scanned the courtroom for a moment, acknowledging the murmurs and restless shifting of spectators, before turning his gaze back to Marcus. "Mr. Marcus," he said, his voice calm but firm, "you are here regarding a fine for a parking violation. Is that correct?" "Yes, Your Honor," Marcus replied, his voice barely audible. He felt every eye in the courtroom on him, some filled with judgment, others with curiosity. He could almost hear the unspoken thoughts of those around him. This is the kind of person who shouldn't even get a break. Why should he be treated any differently? A few members of the audience nodded knowingly to one another, their expressions etched with the smug satisfaction of those who believe they understand the rules of society better than anyone else. Marcus swallowed hard, aware that any misstep, any stammer in his words, could confirm the very assumptions that had dogged him since his release. Judge Caprio's gaze softened, and he leaned slightly forward on the bench. "Mr. Marcus, I am aware of your history, and I understand that you have served your time. You have paid society's debt. Today, you face a simple fine, a financial obligation, nothing more." His words seemed to hang in the air, almost vibrating against the tension in the room. The courtroom was silent now, as if everyone had collectively realized that the judge's words were more than procedural, they carried meaning, a message of fairness. Marcus felt his throat tighten. I've been trying, Your Honor," he said, his voice catching. "Trying to get back on my feet. I've been working, trying to start over." His eyes flicked nervously to the gallery, and he saw some of the whispering faces soften slightly, others remain hard and judgmental. Judge Caprio nodded slowly, his expression thoughtful. "I know, Mr. Marcus," he said quietly. There was a pause, a long, deliberate pause that seemed to stretch the walls of the courtroom itself. Then, without warning, the judge reached into his own wallet. A collective gasp rippled through the room. People leaned forward, incredulous. "Your Honor?" the city attorney asked, eyebrows raised in surprise. Judge Caprio's lips curled into a small, patient smile. "Consider this my contribution to your fresh start," he said simply. He handed over cash that would cover the entire fine. The rustle of bills seemed impossibly loud in the silent courtroom. Marcus froze, staring at the judge, unable to process what had just happened. The murmurs erupted into whispers and then into quiet, astonished chatter. Some people shook their heads, unsure if they had seen correctly. Others leaned toward each other, whispering incredulously. Marcus felt a lump in his throat, his eyes welling up with emotions he hadn't allowed himself to feel in years: relief, gratitude, disbelief. I don't know what to say," he stammered, stepping back slightly. "You don't need to say anything," Judge Caprio replied, his voice gentle, firm, and unyielding in its kindness. "Just keep moving forward. That is all I ask." For a moment, the courtroom was suspended in silence, as if the very walls were absorbing the weight of the moment. Then, slowly, applause began. At first, tentative, then louder, heartfelt, genuine. Even the skeptics in the back found themselves nodding in recognition of the unexpected act of kindness. Some wiped tears from their eyes, others simply smiled, the lesson clear. Judgment and compassion were not mutually exclusive, and sometimes, mercy could carry more weight than punishment ever could. Marcus stood there, stunned, feeling a strange warmth spread through him. The heavy weight of stigma and judgment that had clung to him for years began to lift, replaced by a sense of hope and possibility. For the first time in a long while, he felt that maybe, just maybe, the world could allow him to start over. Outside the courtroom, the crisp morning air felt different to Marcus, almost electric. He stepped down the worn stone steps, his legs slightly shaky from the whirlwind of emotions inside. The courthouse steps were crowded with onlookers, reporters jostling for position, and a scattering of townspeople who had stopped by out of curiosity. Phones were held high, capturing the moment, while some reporters muttered into their microphones, their faces a mixture of disbelief and admiration. Social media notifications began to ping incessantly as snippets of what had just occurred in the courtroom were already being shared and reshared. "Did that really happen?" a woman murmured to her friend, her eyes wide with amazement. She gestured toward the building. "He actually paid the fine himself? Right there, in front of everyone?" "Yeah," the friend replied, shaking his head slowly. "I saw it happen. Judge Caprio, he did it." Marcus remained near the steps, trying to steady his breathing. The weight of years of judgment, suspicion from strangers had been lifted, replaced by something almost foreign, hope. People who had once been ready to condemn him were now whispering his name in tones of respect and curiosity. Some approached cautiously, wanting to understand more, some offered quiet congratulations, and others simply nodded at him as if recognizing that he had just taken a small but meaningful step toward redemption. A young reporter stepped forward, microphone in hand, her eyes wide with intensity. "Marcus, can you tell us how it feels to have the judge personally pay your fine?" she asked, her voice a mixture of disbelief and excitement. Marcus blinked, swallowed hard, and looked toward the courthouse doors where Judge Caprio had just returned to his chambers. The judge's head tilted slightly in a quiet, imperceptible nod, a gesture that seemed to say, "This is your moment, carry it forward." Marcus's voice caught as he spoke. I don't know what to say. I've spent so many years thinking that people like me, people with mistakes in their past, are always stuck paying for them, stuck living under the shadow of their past. And then, today, someone believed that I could start over. That I deserve a chance. Reporters scribbled furiously, capturing every word. Cameras flashed, and a few audience members filmed short clips, uploading them instantly to social media. Within minutes, the story had begun to spread like wildfire. Clips of Judge Caprio's act circulated across platforms, sparking debate, praise, and admiration from people who had never stepped foot in that small Rhode Island courthouse. Hashtags like #SecondChance, #JudgeCaprio, and #HumanJustice began trending, and comments poured in from all over the country, some skeptical, some inspired, but most filled with a renewed faith in humanity. Meanwhile, Marcus's phone buzzed repeatedly. Messages from his employer, from old friends, even from distant acquaintances, all poured in with congratulations, encouragement, and well wishes. One message stood out. His new employer confirmed that he could start his new position the following week, a fresh start he had long hoped for but scarcely believed would arrive so soon. Standing there, Marcus realized the significance of the moment. The judgment of others, the sideways glances, the whispered conversations in elevators, the subtle exclusions in social settings, had always been a heavy cloak he carried. But now, that cloak felt lighter. For the first time in years, he felt the possibility of moving forward without the constant weight of past mistakes pressing down on him. Judge Caprio returned to his chambers quietly, unseen by most, a simple figure going about his work. He didn't seek the spotlight, didn't crave recognition for his actions. To him, justice wasn't merely about rules and fines, it was about human dignity, about creating opportunities for people to move forward when they had done what was required to make amends. Helping someone take a small, meaningful step forward, he believed, could ripple far beyond a single courtroom, far beyond a single day.